Welcome. I have with me today Dr. Paul Jenkins, known as the Positivity Psychologist and host of Live on Purpose TV and Live on Purpose Radio. He's also known as a former assistant soccer coach. We coached soccer together many years ago. So we have a history together.
Paul, that's back when we had kids, Ken.
That's right.
People ask me now, how many kids do you have? And I'm like, none. I've got 4 adults that grew up in my home that I have a relationship with and 8 little grandkids, but I don't have any kids anymore.
That sounds a long time ago, but it was fun.
It was. Good memories.
Paul, tell our audience just a little bit about yourself.
Well, you introduced me pretty well, Ken. I'm the Positivity Psychologist. And you've heard it forever, right? Just think positive, which is really annoying, depending on who's saying it and why. It sounds kind of dismissive, but I have built my career around positivity and actually what it is from a psychological standpoint. That's not where I started. I was a traditional psychotherapist for about 15 years. And it was about the time you and I were coaching together that I started to make a shift over to positive psychology. So if you think of your mental health, for example, on a spectrum or a continuum, clear over on the left end is the sick end. Okay, so that's where we got diagnosis, pathology, treatment, all those fun things. I'm really more interested in the other end of that.
Okay.
And to understand that, if we go to the middle first, that's health. And you'd think health is the opposite of sick, right? But I put it right in the middle, meaning not sick. So you could be sick in bed with a fever, throwing up. There comes a time you can get out of bed and you're not sick. But that doesn't mean you're truly fit, thriving, prospering. That's over here on the other end. And so I basically moved my practice from that sick end of the spectrum over to the positive end of the spectrum. And there's some overlap in the middle because everybody's got issues. Have you noticed?
Yes.
And so we deal with those things, but it's all according to principles of positive psychology. And there's no surprises. There's no magic. There's no luck involved. All of life's outcomes are determined by principles. And when we can identify and correctly apply those principles, it changes the outcomes. So that's a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think this is unfortunate, Ken, but the term psychotherapy sounds a little like therapy for psychos.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because people sometimes resist going that direction. Oh, I don't need that kind of help, right? When the principles can actually help us anywhere on that spectrum. So it's been really fun to shift over to positive psychology and just teach people how to operate the equipment of their own mind.
Talk to me a little bit about these specific principles of positivity.
Well, we can start from a very basic place.
Okay.
And I'll put it this way. It is what it is. Okay, that's also annoying, depending on who's saying it and why. But all it means is the way things are right now. I gave a talk yesterday at Silicon Slopes here in our neck of the woods in Utah. And I started out with a quote by Carrie Fisher. Do you remember Carrie? Mm-hmm. Princess Leia of Star Wars fame. She said this, "I have problems. They don't have me." Now you think about what that means for a minute. Everybody's got problems. True? Welcome to Earth. That's how we roll here.
Yeah.
What's different and what builds resilience and hope and other really positive things that we need to create and live a life that we love happens in our mind. So my job is to illuminate the obvious. And this is cool because I get paid to tell people things they already know. But check it out. There's a lot of obvious things that are completely unnoticed. Okay, like your shirt.
Hmm.
Can you feel it
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Right? But
Yep.
before I said anything, your mind just tuned it out. So it's obvious but unnoticed. Or the fact that we're speaking English. Did you notice? Ah, obvious but unnoticed until it's called to your attention. So that's what's going on in our mind. Obvious but unnoticed processes. Once you are aware of them, then you're in a place of choice. Okay, so here's the first one. I've got
Okay.
two. Can I share
Okay.
two of them?
Yes. Yes.
All right, the first one is, and I invite you to notice this, Ken Baker, you are constantly judging. Now you chuckle a little bit because you know it's true, don't you?
Yeah.
You and it's not anything about you, it's about humans.
Hmm.
Our brain's job is to keep us safe and to prove us right. And both of those get in our way all the time. But check it out, to keep us safe, our brain has to constantly be on the lookout and judging, is this safe? Is this dangerous? Is this big? Is this small? Is this good? Is this bad? You're constantly judging. You judge yourself pretty harshly sometimes. You judge your spouse. You judge the weather. You judge the economy. You judge the government. You're judging me. It's cool. I'm judging you. So I invite you in this moment to just notice that. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, now judgment. I use a nicer word in my model. Okay, I developed a model for this. In fact, if you as a listener, if you want to get a copy of my model, we've put together a free download for you of my digital mini book called Portable Positivity. I go over the whole model. So just remember my name, Dr. Paul Jenkins, spelled with a DR, okay, drpauljenkins.com, and then do a / Ken's name, Ken Baker. drpauljenkins.com / Ken Baker. And I'll give you a copy of my mini book because what I'm describing to you here is the operation instructions for the equipment of your own mind. So go back to it is what it is. What is your brain doing with it? Judging it. And you can't turn it off any more than you can turn off gravity. How often do you get up in the morning and think, oh, I wonder if gravity's on today? Tends to be, right? Okay, so let me give you an example of how this works. I was speaking in Orlando several years ago at the Youth Leadership Conference there for the National Speakers Association. And I was sitting there waiting for my turn to speak, and I got a text from my sister. It said this: I wanted you to know that Talon had an accident last night. He was on his annual volunteer first responder TIMP weekend, and he slipped and fell off a 30-foot ... Okay, now the ... was because I was looking at it on my watch. You know how you get the little short version? And I didn't have my phone with me. It was in my backpack, kind of tucked away. So I didn't get the whole text. Now, what comes to your mind when I share that with you?
That could be a cliff, could be anything.
Yeah. And my brain just went crazy with it. Okay. My own father lost his dad to an accident when he was only 5. Good friend of mine crashed his plane in Utah Lake a little over a decade ago, leaving his wife and family without a husband and father. And now I'm getting this text from my sister. So my brain is like, oh, do I need to go home early? Do we have a funeral? What's going on here? Well, after the speaker finished, I was able to get into my backpack, pull out my phone because I got to make a phone call, right? But first I go to the text because I want to see. So I look at the text message, and I'll pick you up where we left off. He slipped and fell off a 30-foot waterfall and broke both of his ankles and injured his knee. They could use your prayers. Just wanted to let you know. Okay, how do you feel now?
A little bit better.
A little bit better. I felt a lot of bit better, Ken.
Yeah.
I was so relieved. It was like, oh, okay, right? Now, notice that you're not pretending to feel better, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is what it is. And what it is 2 broken ankles. What is your mind doing? It's evaluating that. It's judging it. It's saying, is this good or is this bad? And then our imagination kicks in, right? Because the word evaluation implies comparison with some standard. Meaning, you got to compare it to something. So in my mini book, and I offered you guys a copy of this, there's an image of me standing next to Mark Eaton. Okay, now, Ken, you smiled because you remember Big Mark.
Yeah.
Don't you? And
Yeah.
I ask my audiences if I'm speaking, hey, am I a tall man? I'm 6'2". Okay, and compared to most people, that makes me pretty tall. But standing next to Mark, I barely make his shoulder. He's 7'4", right? So am I a tall man or not? Well, notice that judgment or evaluation implies comparison. Compared to what? So when I told you the story about my nephew, right? He had 2 broken ankles. Can you imagine anything better than that?
In that circumstance, that's pretty good.
In that circumstance, but at first we were thinking, okay, he's fallen off of the cliff, right? That's bad. Compared to what? Compared to not falling off of a cliff, this really sucks.
Yeah.
Right? Compared to no accident happening. So as long as we compare what we've got, our what it is, and I invite you to think about whatever your what it is. Sometimes it's a diagnosis or a financial issue, or for me, years ago, it was a bankruptcy. I didn't plan on this. It's not what I wanted, but here it is. And sometimes what it is just falls in your lap.
Yeah.
Then you judge it. Is this good or bad? I don't know. I'll check. And then you go find something to compare it to. And if you don't have a standard of comparison, you'll make one up. And you got a really great imagination. Okay, so compared to no accident, this really sucks.
Yeah.
And you're always right about how you feel. How you feel depends on how your brain is doing this. Okay, and then I told you the rest of the story. Yeah. Can you imagine anything worse than 2 broken ankles?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I helped you. I told you where my brain went. My father losing his dad to an accident, my friend who crashed his plane. I'm thinking, okay, this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And then when I found out it's 2 broken ankles, I'm like, oh, whew, right? This is good compared to that. And it really is good compared to that. So the short version, when we judge, whatever it is, it could be our relationship, our finances, our business, our health. When we judge and we compare what we've got to something better, we feel worse about what we've got. Yeah. It's pretty obvious now, isn't it?
Yeah. So how do you use that to help people?
Well, look at the inverse of that. When we compare what we've got, no matter what it is, to something worse, we feel a little better, in your words,
Yeah.
about what we've got. And notice what we've got didn't change. I have discovered, Ken, that I'm really bad at changing people's circumstances. They come in and they say, my spouse left me, or my son died, or whatever. I really suck at changing those things. So it is what it is. What can we change? We can change how we judge it. And everything has upsides and everything has downsides. So here's an invitation. Whatever it is that you've been telling yourself is bad, I would invite you to ask the question, compared to what? And you don't even have to change it. Just notice it. Because I'm not here to tell you how to think.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of authority. I do want you to notice that you are thinking, that your thinking matters, and it creates that emotional energy that we call feelings. It's the feelings that determine how we show up, and that's what creates our results. So this affects everything. Everything.
So, I'm just kind of talking off the top of my mind, but
Yeah.
so someone comes in, talks to you, and they have a really, devastating situation. And
Compared to what?
well, yeah, exactly. But
Okay. Yeah, but go on.
The problem is still there, and they're still dealing with it.
Absolutely.
And it's really hard.
It is.
And you don't want to devalue what they're going through.
Absolutely.
And so how do you navigate that? And how do you because sometimes people need validation that, yeah, this is really hard. And
Yeah.
you don't want to minimize what they're feeling. So, kind of walk me through that dance, and
I am so glad that you're asking the question, because if we go around saying, hey, it could be worse, even though that's true, it's very dismissive.
Yeah.
And offensive, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And you will lose friends.
Yeah.
And even though people pay me to help them feel differently, they still don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
So here's the first thing that I want to say. We're supposed to feel stuff. We're supposed to. And if anybody tells you you shouldn't feel that way, fire them and run the other direction. Feel all the feels. Welcome to Earth. That's what humans do. So rather than insisting that someone change, or feeling very uncomfortable because someone's going through that hard time and we just want to make them feel better, let's feel whatever we get to feel as humans. And show up with love and empathy for each other, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's painful. I love the way Tim Hansel put this in his book, You Gotta Keep Dancing. He said, pain is inevitable. Misery is optional. There's two kinds of pain. There's real pain that we get to feel because we choose to love people. And when they get hurt or they die or we lose them, we're going to feel stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that's real pain. We're supposed to feel it. The only way to take the sorrow out of death is to take the love out of life. Having said that, now what's the second kind of pain? Neurotic pain. Okay, this is the unnecessary pain that we generate for ourselves, where we create misery by the stories in our head. And again, it's not my job to tell you how to think, but usually when people hire me, Ken, as a professional psychologist, They're ready for something to change. They're tired of feeling this way all the time. And depression is not the same thing as grief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's a little brain hack. And what we're going to do now that we know that our brain is constantly judging, we're going to ask our brain to do it differently. And we're not denying the pain. That's all there, and it's painfully obvious. What we're going to do is ask our brain to find something in it. Okay, so you've heard of gratitude exercises.
Yes.
Maybe you've done them before. You know what? Most people, when they do gratitude exercises, they wimp out. Here's what I mean. My friend Kevin Clayson shared this with me. He's the author of a book called Flip the Gratitude Switch. And Kevin said, imagine that you go to the gym. If you go to the gym every day, you're going to get stronger, right? What if you go to the gym every day and pick up the pen there on the reception desk and do 5 reps with your right arm, switch it over, do 5 with your left arm, put it down, come back tomorrow, do the same thing. How strong are you going to get? It's a pen. Do some heavy lifting, put on some weight, right? And when we do gratitude lists, a lot of times we're just doing the light lifting. We put things like family and health and puppies and rainbows and indoor plumbing. Anybody can be grateful for that. That's not heavy lifting. Here's what makes a gratitude list powerful. You ask yourself, what am I grateful for in or from or because of my hard thing? Okay, so you know some of my family, Ken. My oldest son called me about 2 years ago and said, Dad, I have cancer. Okay, now as a parent, that just, it zings you. You're supposed to feel that, right? So cancer. And his last set of scans, by the way, showed no evidence of disease. So I have to throw that in because people get worried when I say my son had cancer. Yeah, well, yeah, it's earned its reputation. It was a couple of years of brutal treatments and he still can't use his leg. So it is what it is, right? But what is your cancer? What is your broken ankles? What is the thing that is hard, difficult, painful? And here's what powers up the gratitude. You find what you're grateful for in that. Ask your mind to give it to you. I guarantee you'll find something. So what if it's cancer? I'm not saying be grateful for the cancer. I'm saying open it up. Peel it back, rummage around in there, see what you can find that you are grateful for. Put that on your list. And if you'll do 25 of those a day for 5 days, it will change your life. This is life-saving, Ken. I've seen it save people's lives. And you know what I found in that cancer? I found 9 trips over the course of the next year to be in my son's home in Chicago with my 5 grandkids. Am I grateful for that? Oh, yeah. Am I grateful for the cancer? See, that's a little harder, but that's where I found it.
Yeah.
What about the people you've met? What about the things you've learned? What about the empathy that you've gained? That's one of the biggest things I got from my bankruptcy that I am truly grateful for. I used to think people who went through a bankruptcy were dishonest or flakes or, yeah, I have a lot more empathy now. I'm grateful for the empathy, the experience. You with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I call that the gratitude power up. And what we're doing is offering our brain a different task. And your brain is just sitting there ready to follow instructions. Okay, so if you say, this is bad, your brain is going to be like, Aye, aye, Captain. I'll go find you evidence that you're right. You know, if you say, this is good, there's something in here to be grateful for, your brain's like, aye, aye, Captain. I'm going to go find you some things. And you will find them if you ask your brain to do that. There's some resistance usually, because we tend to be very committed to whatever it is we already believe. And we tend to believe what we think, which is another problem that we won't get into today. But that's the one process, judgment. And I just gave you a brain hack. I call it the gratitude power up. Make a list of 25 things that you're grateful for about the hard thing, the difficult, painful, frustrating, annoying, whatever it is. What are you thinking
awesome.
so far?
That's awesome. I'd love to hear more. Are there other principles you'd like to share? Or?
Well, I told you I'd tell you two processes that are going on in your mind. Okay. And as you're aware of them, again, I don't care what you do with them after that. That's up to you. I just want you to see it. Yeah. And once you see it, notice that you're judging. Notice that you can ask your brain to look for what you're grateful for in the hard thing. You're not going to get rid of the hard thing. It's just, it is what it is. So find the gratitude. That changes the game because we're not done yet. The next thing that your brain is constantly doing that you can't turn off is called creation. Okay, and you'll see in the visual representation of the model, I've got evaluation on the bottom and creation on the top. Okay. And you'll see that in the mini book. I break it all down for you. And once again, while you're listening, drpauljenkins.com, spelled with a DR/Ken Baker. And you'll get a copy of that mini book. I want to put it in your hands because this is life-changing. When you go to creation mode, we're talking about creation of what is to be. And that doesn't exist yet. We haven't created it yet, right? And we don't know what's coming. So how are you doing next week?
I don't know.
You don't. That is the best answer, Ken. You nailed it. You don't know. Now, you've got guesses. You've got some anticipation. You've probably got some plans, but you don't know how you're doing next week. You don't know. You've got something to do with it. Don't forget that because you're a powerful creator. But let's just stay in that space of we don't know. Everything that's created, like when you write a book, Ken, the book doesn't just pop into being, right? I've got a copy of Brave Little Monster on my Hall of Fame shelf over there because you were on my podcast years ago. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And that book didn't just pop into existence. You had to think it up first. Yeah. You had to imagine it, right? Mm-hmm. This is how creation works. I give full-day trainings to teams on creation and how that happens psychologically, and you have to imagine it, right? So just go to the feelings for a minute. We're not going to talk about that whole creation process, but just go to the feelings, the emotional energy when we imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even worse than what we already have. How do we feel when we imagine that what's coming is going to be even worse?
Well, it's negative. I mean, you feel worse.
Well, this is anxiety. Yeah. Okay, there's 30 years of clinical experience in a nutshell. When we imagine that what's coming is worse, we feel anxiety, apprehension, nervousness, fear. And we don't know what's coming, but we're imagining that. That creates anxiety, which is almost pandemic right now. Okay, so conversely, how do we feel when we imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even better than what we've already got? How do we feel?
Well, you're hopeful.
Yes, and you nailed that one. It's hope. This is hope. which is the number one preventative factor for suicide. And we know this because it's the number one risk factor when people feel hopeless. That's the risk factor. And this is the core of resilience. Resilience is all about being able to generate hope on demand by choice. So if I gave you an assignment to use your brilliant creative mind to somehow just take 15 minutes is all, 15 minutes, somehow make your life worse. Could you do it?
Yes.
Yeah, now you're chuckling because you'd never do that on purpose.
Yeah.
We do it accidentally all the time. We're really good at making messes,
Yes.
right? But look how quickly your brain came up with half a dozen ways that you could pull that off. And it wouldn't even take 15 minutes, would it? So I point that out to you because it's really important to understand that we as humans are really good at making messes. And you've probably noticed that. Now, this is good news, okay? Wait, Dr. Paul, how is that good news? Look, if you can make a mess, then you can make, and that's good news. Now, what are we going to make? Messes or masterpieces? And there's a whole process behind that, but it starts with imagining what is to be. And I've got a hack for that one too. You want this hack?
Yeah.
So if you do the gratitude power up for 5 days, let's do this one for 5 days too. I call this one BB-8, just like the droid from Star Wars. But it stands for better by 8. So think about it. 8 o'clock is coming, right? Look at your clock. It's coming.
Yeah.
How sure are you that you're going to be around for 8 o'clock?
Oh, pretty sure.
You've got a good track record, don't you?
Yeah.
You've made it to every 8 o'clock so far your whole life. So probably you're going to be around. Now, there's only 2 options. I don't think it's even possible for things to be exactly the same at 8 o'clock as they are right now. Because at the very least, you're going to be several hours older. That only goes one direction. You might be more hungry, more tired. I don't know. It depends on what you did just before 8. Things are not going to be the same. Therefore, by your own judgment or evaluation, which you can't turn off, things have to be either better or worse.
Or worse. Yeah.
At 8 o'clock, by your own judgment, either a little or a lot. We already know you could make things worse. Okay, so BB-8 is ask your powerful mind in creation mode to give you some ideas. What can I do to make my life better by 8? And I'm not talking next week, next month, next year. 8 o'clock. Now, what do you find your brain doing, Ken, as I just present that to you?
Well, I start thinking of some of the concepts you've already talked about. First off, gratitude and, but also, you can do positive things, to make things
Yes.
better. So.
And you can pick any aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Financially, what can I do to make it better by 8? My relationship with my wife, what can I do to make it better by 8? How about my kids? How about my health? But you're the creator, pick something, right? And just ask your brain. Now, notice that your brain then starts to, aye, Captain, I'll find you a way to make your life better by 8. And that creates a feeling.
Yeah.
Notice how that feels.
Yeah.
If you do this for the same 5 days that you do the gratitude power up, you get to have 10 upgrades to your life. How awesome is that? I see you smiling, Ken, and it's just that reveals the power of positivity.
Yeah.
It's not about denying the pain. The pain is inevitable. What are we going to ask our powerful brain to do in evaluation mode and in creation mode that helps to keep us in what I call the positivity vector? And you'll see that on the visual model when you take a look at it. How's that working for you, Ken? Is that clicking?
This is awesome. I'm just loving everything you're saying. So,
we should have known this back then when we were coaching those boys.
That's right.
We had to grow up and learn things ourselves.
That's right.
So can I just remind people too, if you want a step-by-step breakdown, that's in my mini book, Portable Positivity, okay. Free digital copy for everybody listening today to the podcast. drpauljenkins.com, spelled with a DR, /Ken Baker. And that's where you'll find it.
Okay, I have a few more questions for you, but before I do that, is there anything else or any message that you want to make sure comes across today to our viewers or listeners that you want to make sure that they walk away with?
Well, as I've been talking about the model, and you can tell I get really passionate about this. This is my life's work. I know that it saves lives. And going back to kind of where we started, resilience is not about what happens to you. Circumstances are neutral. And in saying they're neutral, I don't mean that they're easy or pleasant. They might be very difficult and painful. But what I mean is it is what it is, and it could always be better and it could always be worse. Then how we judge it and how we create moving forward is up to us. So it's not about what happens to us. It's about how we happen to what happens to us. That's what resilience is all about. You got problems? Welcome to Earth. Do they have you? Welcome to the power of positivity. When you learn how to operate the equipment of your own mind, it puts you back into a position of choice and control. And either you run your thoughts or your thoughts are going to run you. You will experience pain. Misery is optional.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much, Paul. This has been great.
You're welcome.
So I have one more question, and tell me, how does your faith or belief system impact what you do and how you work with others?
It has a profound impact. And that's because everything that we do is controlled by our beliefs. Okay, and beliefs are different from thoughts.
Yeah.
There's a different level to those. We can't always articulate our beliefs. We can tell each other what we think, but our beliefs are it's kind of like the operating system below that. And I do have a fundamental belief, Ken, that we are divinely designed by our Creator, who has a purpose for us and a method that will allow us to get there. This model that I've shared with you, and since you asked, I'm going to share. I call this positivity, this model that I talk about in my mini book, Portable Positivity, and the one that I keep showing you, but our listeners, if they're listening audio only, aren't going to see it.
Yeah.
This model of positivity is a psychological model for faith. And that's a word that we hear more in religious settings or in faith-based conversations. Faith is how you operate your mind when it comes to judgment and creation. And from a psychological standpoint, it's where everything is made. Everything hinges on that. So when you ask, what does my faith have to do with that? This is a description of my faith. And I believe that our Creator designed us on purpose exactly as we are. We are perfectly designed to be imperfect. And when we understand how to operate the equipment of our own mind, we become powerful creators as well. And it's not that we become creators. I think we're the offspring of the Supreme Creator. And you and I have talked before, I think we share that perspective. As the offspring of the Supreme Creator, what does that make us? Creators.
Yeah.
And it's not that we can become creators someday. We already are.
Yeah.
Just like a puppy is already a dog. So we have to create something. And if we don't notice that we are powerful to create messes, then we're going to go about blaming everybody else or circumstances for the messes that surround us. When we tune into our creative power, we realize, oh, this is me. I'm creating this. I have creative power. And then as you harness that, sky's the limit.
Awesome. Well, Paul, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking time with me today. This has been wonderful. I've learned a lot, and it's been truly helpful for me. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for the opportunity. It's always good to connect with you, Ken.